Hey, everybody, it's Wes from the 4x4 Canada podcast. Trisha and I have decided to do something a little different for this episode, and actually for a few more episodes coming up into the new year. We are going to step back and take a look at some of our previous episodes. This episode, I believe, is going to be number 107, and we've had a lot of new listeners over the last couple of years, so we want to take some of these older episodes and bring them back up front so that our listeners can listen to some of our earlier episodes and some of our earlier guests. We have had some incredible guests over the last 2 years and the last 100 episodes. And I really want to bring some of these wonderful people back up to the forefront. In this episode, we're going to be listening to the second podcast interview we ever had here at the 4x4 Canada podcast. Back in August of 2022, I had an awesome conversation with Steve McCrossan. He's an off-road racer out of Ontario, and he raced a 80s Bronco through the 80s into the 90s, and then hopped up into a real high-tech Pro 4 short course truck and raced the Crandon and all those other awesome short course tracks all across North America. And then, since Steve is a Bronco fan, just like myself, he ended up picking up a older first generation race Bronco, stripped down the bare frame, rebuilt it, and went off to race in the NORRA event. And so it was a great conversation. Lots of different things we hit on. I also want to give a shout out to his daughter, Nicole McCrossan. Trisha and I interviewed her back in January of this year. And it was really neat to listen to her talk about racing, or growing up in a racing family, and then starting to race herself and eventually racing against her dad. That's another one to check out. Go back into their January 2024. But today we're here to talk with Steve McCrossan. Again, this is the second podcast interview I ever did, so it was a lot of fun, and they got me hooked, and I hope this gets you hooked as well. Talk to you soon. So our guest today is an off-road racer from Ontario. He raced his 80s Broncos in Ontario for a number of years and raced a Pro 4 short course in the States. He recently finished the NORRA Mexican 1000 in second place in their class in their 1975 Ford Bronco. Steve McCrossan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Wes, glad to be here.
So before we get into it too much, we'll give a quick shout out to your social. You can check them out on McCrossan Motorsports on Facebook and Instagram, and the links will be provided in the show notes. We'll talk about that again in a second, but let's talk about the NORRA race. The NORRA Mexican 1000, 5 days of racing. How was that?
Man, you know what? Like when I get asked that question, it's just a whole gamut of emotions. Like it was fun, but it was hard. Like it was so hard. You know, we had 8 of us on our crew down there, and you know, every single person just worked and worked and worked. And you know, this was our first time going down to do a race like this. Like we've been in short course for years. And we decided, you know what, let's go do NORRA, and it's going to be a ton of fun. But we worked hard. And, you know, it was our first time doing it, and it turned out we were pretty fast too. So, you know, there was times where we were like, hey man, we're in first place here. And, you know, we got to like keep the hammer down and keep this thing together every day to make it to the end, because you're not just racing your competition down there, you're racing Baja. And
yeah, it's a totally different mindset. You know, I've been involved with distance racing, and I've been involved with short course racing, and it's a different vehicle prep, it's a different vehicle style, and it's a totally different mindset when you're out there racing. It's, you know, you got to hold it together. Rod Hall always said, in order to finish first, you got to finish, right? But you also want to finish first.
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
So,
yeah. No, we picked this thing up, and I bought it in Texas, like just before the border opened. And the day the border opened, I drove down to Texas, picked this truck up, got it into Wisconsin to our race fab shop there. Case Gunderson went through all the shocks on it for us, and immediately after that, brought it back home. And we tore that thing down and just prepped it, you know, put all new TMR parts in it, made that truck strong. And it was a good truck. Like, man, like we didn't have any big issues the whole time we were down there. And, you know, like out of a couple hundred entries, like there, a lot of people don't even finish that race. It's just so brutal on the vehicles.
And on the body too.
Yeah, yeah. It takes a toll on the body. It, being the first time, I don't know what I was thinking, but I said I'm going to drive the whole thing, right? And I had three different co-pilots that I just kept wearing out day after day. And you know what? There was days where I could barely even get out of the car. Like just, I'd crawl out and could barely walk. It was just being in there for so long, getting beaten up. But you know what? Our guys every day would just go through that thing at the end of the day and give me a fresh truck first thing in the morning and back at it again. It was really, really good.
So the Mexican 1000, 5 days long. This year it went down the whole way, didn't it? Down
Yeah.
the to the tip.
Yep, yeah, all the way to Cabo. Yep,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So there was some incredible stuff we were driving through. Like, we're going through towns and the people down there. Like everybody just loves the races and Baja, and little kids are cheering you on going through towns. And at the end of the day, we'd stop and hand out little toys and stickers to the kids, and it was just amazing to see it. But just the remoteness of it too in Baja is unbelievable. We're driving along an 8-foot wide path on the edge of a mountain that's 500 feet down into the ocean if something goes wrong, and trying to race at the same time to stay alive. It's just,
Yeah.
I'm not looking around too much. I'm looking where I'm going, but the co-pilots are like, "Holy crap! Can you see this view?"
You're like, no, I'm concentrating on keeping on the road.
Yeah, it's
And then you get the silt beds after that too, right? Like,
yeah, oh yeah. It's just everything. We hit a silt bed that was so rutted out. We ended up being high sided and got stuck for about an hour and a half. And ultimately, that cost us winning our class. That's what we believe, that if we hadn't got stuck in there, we lost to. It's like we're second place by 40 minutes. And
yeah.
we're an hour and a half in a silt bed. So, but you know what? That's Baja, right? Like you just don't know what's coming at you. So everybody's got issues, and they got to deal with it.
Yeah, exactly. And what class were you in? I know there's a multiple amount of classes at the NORRA races, and there's a lot of vintage race vehicles, and then there's some of the newer ones. But what class were you guys in?
We were in vintage short wheelbase 4x4, which turned out to be a really great class because we had 7 vehicles in our class. Where as a lot of the other, like Pioneer Bronco, there was only one guy in the class, right? So it's great they go up and get the trophy, but they're not. It's still fun, and we're all racing together. But it was nice having so much competition. There was Jeeps, and and these guys were unbelievably fast too. Like there was one day we were following the guy that won in a Jeep that beat us. And I said to my co-pilot, I said, I'm going to hook in behind this guy on this big gravel road. And man, that guy must have been going like 110 miles an hour on these gravel roads, like just sliding sideways, like just a full-on drift. It's almost like a Pikes Peak type thing. And, for these old Jeeps and Broncos flying through that stuff at that speed, it's a pretty cool feeling.
Especially that short a wheelbase.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like these things are, they don't call them bucking Broncos for anything. Like that's just the way it is. Like when you're going through the desert, these things are, it's like you're looking up at the sky, ground. It's just, they do beat you up. That's for sure.
But there's something about that though too. Like, I mean, as you know, I'm a huge vintage guy or old school guy, and there's you take something like your Pro 4 and you take something with the Bronco, totally different race style, totally different race driving, different driving style and mentality. But there's something to be said about the older stuff and surviving a 5-day race rather than a 15-minute race and it's all over with kind of idea, right?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like these old vehicles, it's just going back to the roots, right? Like, when we were down there, there was vehicles in this race that actually raced in the original 1967 NORRA race. Like that's how far back it goes with these, these cars and the people that bring these things down here. So it's history, man. People are keeping the history alive. They're building these cars, they're keeping them together and taking them back out there. Broncos, like the big Ollie Bronco was down in Baja, and they raced it, and the guy that owned it flipped it over during the race. They just pushed that thing back over and kept going, and it was
That yeah,
pretty good. Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. That truck, the guy bought it for 1.87 million and then proceeds to put it in a race and take it out and race the thing. Well, you know what? That's amazing.
yeah, that was definitely one of the things I wanted to bring up. I mean, that, $1.87 million and you flip it on the roof twice.
Yeah.
Like, but that is a piece of iconic history, and hats off to the guy for not just putting it in his garage and letting it sit there, but actually bringing it out, letting people see it, and actually racing the thing. I don't know if he'll ever do it again, but hats off to him. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, for sure.
awesome. And then they also had the Strop display. Is that how you pronounce it? Bill Strop
Yeah. Yeah.
display.
Yeah. I call it stroke. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it was really cool. Yeah. There was, they had some stock original Baja Broncos there. Andrew Norton had the Colt there. There was Big Ollie was there, and a lot of the other Broncos. We had our Bronco in the display there, and all the other Bronco guys were there too. But it was really cool seeing those vehicles, everybody set up, and just the history that was there is just amazing.
Yeah, that's one thing I was really hoping to get down there this year just to check it out. And there's so many, like you say, the Colt and Big Ole, and there's so many other iconic race vehicles like the X-Rod Hall Dodge, and those are vehicles that I grew up seeing in magazines, and
Yeah.
it's definitely was the year to go down for sure. You guys going back again next year?
Yeah, we're looking at going back again next year. It's one of those things when you finish it and you get home, you're like, man, I don't know if I'll ever do that again. But as time goes on, you kind of forget about the pain, and and that's just a couple of weeks ago. I started working on the Bronco again, looking at what can we do better and make better on it. So we're already making some changes to it. The brakes were kind of funky on it, and we want to do that and make that thing stop a little better. So it's a progression, right? Like you never ever stop. Like you're always trying to go, okay, what can we do better? How can we go faster? And it was hard when we were at the awards banquet, when we're down there getting our second place. I said to my crew chief, Rob Purcell, I go, look at that right there. There's the first place stage. I go, how close we were to that? Like, it's just, we were so close we could taste it. So when you see something like that, it's like, you know what, maybe we can get it next year, right?
Yeah, that's the racer mentality, right? You get back and you on the drive home, you're thinking, okay, I'm beat, I'm done. And then 3 days later, it pops into your mind. It's like, oh, we're so close. And oh yeah, maybe we can do it again next year. And it's the distance racing is definitely, I find, a whole different ball game compared to the short course stuff.
Yeah.
And I enjoy both, but the distance is sort of where I really enjoy it. It's more of it's a true test of machine and person and mind as well. It's you're not going full out balls out you can't go full out balls out. You got to drive smart, but you also have to drive fast, right? So
Yeah.
tell us about the Bronco. What it it was it was a race truck that was down in Texas. You guys brought it up, and like I say, you went through, rebuilt it. What are you looking at for suspension and motor and all that on the Bronco?
It's got a small block Ford in it that's based off a 351 Windsor. It's poured out to a 408, and it's probably making conservatively around 500 horse, which in a lot of race cars isn't a lot, but for a Baja Bronco, it's plenty. Believe me. It's got some pretty good suspension in it for a Bronco. We've got King shocks all the way around, two per wheel, coilovers in the front. It's got the leaf springs in the rear, just to meet the class requirements. But it's being a short wheelbase truck, it works really well. Like, it handles good. It's got a 9-inch Ford with Dana 60 outers in the front, which makes the front end super super tough in this truck, because that's one of the most vulnerable areas. Is with the old Dana 44s, you could just grenade those and snap those axles. Just like hit a couple of big holes and that's it. But typically we run it in two-wheel drive all the time. The truck doesn't like to be in four-wheel drive all the time. It just handles better in two-wheel drive, and that's how we ran it most of the time. And it's just really low RPM. It likes to. And this took me a while to figure it out. You know what I mean? First time in the truck, I got to. I'm used to, like, I got the RPMs up. We got to rev this thing, but this truck just likes to be lugging. And the good thing with that, you're not like taking the tires off it, because man, you can go out with a brand new set of tires in Baja, and if you're just on the gas, you can burn your tires out in no time at all. And at one point in the race, near the end, I actually pulled over because I had a flat, but it was just the tires that were gone away. Like, there was just basically hardly any lugs left on them, like just destroyed. It's unbelievable what the rocks will do to you out there. Yeah, you're dealing with the terrain.
Yeah, the rocks and fuel mileage is another concern too, right? If you're going full out, you're going to be burning through that fuel, and you've probably got a 30-gallon tank or something like that in there, right? But
yeah,
you're limited. Of course, you have pit stops along the way, but it's something you got to think about more than you do in a short course race, for sure.
Yeah. There's the logistics is incredible when you're doing Baja. Like your chase team and everything that they've got going on. Like, the chase guys have their own race all by themselves. Like, these guys are, I'm in the desert driving around having a great old time, and they're on the roads trying to get to where I'm going to be. And a lot of times that they have to really get on it. So they're going through the mountains, driving 80 miles an hour, passing semis on the wrong side of the road and trying not to get pulled over by the cops, just to get to the transition point so they can get me some gas or whatever. But so yeah, the logistics are just incredible. There's so much involved.
Yeah, it's not just a simple let's just go out and race kind of idea. It's a lot more than that. And the Mexican people down there really open their arms up to the racing. To them, it's at least from my understanding, it's they open their arms up and they're super excited to have the racers there.
Yeah. Oh, it's a really cool feeling when you could be so tired and just almost at the end of your rope, and then you come around a corner and you see a family in the middle of the desert standing with umbrellas, just so they're not getting beat by the heat, and the little kids are cheering you on. Like, it's just amazing.
Yeah, definitely a big picker upper for sure, right? So
Yeah, people embrace it.
yeah, for sure. The Bronco, you went to the red, white, and black paint scheme. Basically, that's the same scheme as the new factory Ford Bronco. Is that sort of what your thought was on that?
Yeah. We tried to use some of the orange and white strobe colors, and then incorporate it into the new Bronco DR that Multimatic is putting together for Ford, which is kind of a really cool concept.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to seeing that thing come out. But that was the idea, to kind of keep it retro with a little bit of a modern touch. And it turned out pretty good. Everybody liked it, and the TMR, it's such a recognized brand. A lot of people are like, wow, TMR is Canadian. And we're like, yeah, man, like they're our hometown guys, right? So it's like, yeah, we
Yep.
use your stuff all the time. So it was, we got lots of recognition down there because of that. And
Nice.
yeah, and being Canadian too, right? Like it's just, there's not that many Canadians that go down and do this type of stuff. So, we opened a lot of eyes down there, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's great. The Canadian thing is, there's, like you say, there's not much for distance racing up here. We had, we used to have some over in BC here, but they're definitely nothing like a NORRA race. They're more like a 3-hour enduro or a 400-mile race and such like that. But and of course in Ontario, there's the short course racing, which they've always seemed to have a good series going. You looking at NORRA next year? You looking at any other races, like going down to the Mint or any of the other races down there?
Yeah, that's funny you mentioned the Mint, because that's one of the ones that we would like to try and fit in. It's just a really cool venue. Going down to Las Vegas, and all the cars are out on Fremont Street. Like it's a festival as well as a race. So that would, and it's iconic too. Like it's just, all the old, James Garner and Pernelli Joe, like that's how they got it all started. They were all down there doing this race and, being in Vegas, and it's just,
Yeah, the Mint is definitely one of the, like I say, it's an iconic race, like the NORRA race. And there's not too many races that have that kind of history, right? But it's also, like you say, a very party-like atmosphere. So instead of going to a VORA race in Northern California or something like that, there's definitely a festival atmosphere to it. For
yeah,
sure. So
yeah. No, it would be a fun one to get in.
yeah, but it's all, I mean, it being Ontario, you're very removed from it all, right? It's not like us in BC where we can just hop across the border. I mean, how long did it take you guys to get down to Ensenada?
Well, it was over a week. So we, our guys that went that drove down there with all the gear and everything, they were gone a month total, because we went down into Vegas and went and tested on the Mint course. We wanted to get some time in the truck just to sort of feel it out and shake it down, because brand new vehicle to us. So we went down and stayed down in Vegas for a week doing that. But so it took basically a week to get to Vegas, and then another day over in Ensenada. So it's a long haul, and the guys that are doing this, most of them are, if a lot of these guys live in California, so it's no big deal, right? They cross over into Ensenada in a day. Friends of our Kurt Leduc lives down there, and he's always in Baja. He's never not down there. So it's like his backyard, So it's
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it usually takes us a couple of days to get down to Vegas. It's a good 18 hours or something like that, right? So it's a couple of days. So we got a little easier, but yeah, you guys are a lot more, removed, unfortunately. So, but there's still some good racing out east. I mean, like you say, you were mentioning earlier that, that your daughter's going to be going to the Brockville race and stuff like that. And the Ontario, they got a good grassroots racing circuit there. And you used to race that yourself in a 80s Bronco a number of years ago, you and your dad, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's how I got started. I was at a car show in Toronto, and I had always liked off-road tracks and would bomb around. My buddies had dirt bikes, and I'd have my truck out at the dirt bike track, doing the tabletops and stuff, and everybody thought that was kind of cool until we couldn't open the doors anymore. But it, I was at this car show, and the Ontario Off-Road Racing Association had a booth there, and I'm like, wow, this is awesome. I gotta try this out. So they had obstacle racing, where you would go out, and it's a timed event, and you're on the course just by yourself, and whoever gets the fastest time wins. So we went out and started doing that, and got pretty good at it, and ended up flipping over my street truck. And, crushing the roof, and the windows all got kicked out of it. And we finished the weekend and drove it back home with no windows in it from Brighton, Ontario. And after that, it was game on. Like we went and got this '80s Bronco with a TTB front end in it, built it up into a race truck, and never looked back. Like it took us a long time to get it sorted out. There was no internet then, and it was I would crawl under Milan Nosnick's Bronco and just lay under there and look at it. Right? Yeah, I didn't have a camera, so I wasn't. I just look at what he did. He'd come by and get the heck out of there, right? What are you doing? And then I'd go home and work on my truck to make it better and better and better until we got it so that it worked right and did what it was supposed to do. And man, once we got it figured out, like we had a lot of fun in Ontario and won a lot of races.
Yeah, and it's definitely. Back then there was no way of doing that, and you'd have pictures in a magazine or the other vehicles at the track, and that's all you had to work with, and your mind, and that's all you had to work with, right? So
yeah.
And then you ran Pro 4 down in the States for a few years. That was a whole nother ball game as well.
Yeah, that was an insane insane time for sure. Like we spent a lot of time going down to Crandon, Wisconsin with the Bronco, and we won world championship down there in '94 and '95, and just got to know the people down there. And one thing led to another, and Rob McCachran's Pro 4 truck, the ortho truck that he raced, that was a truck built by Kurt Leduc, came up for sale, and we picked it up and decided, let's do this. And we made the commitment in 2000, and we raced right up into 2009 in Pro 4. The last 3-4 years that we raced, we had Jack Flannery's old Pro 4 truck, which was just an insane rocket. Thing was just unbelievable. But yeah, it's a whole different ball game and mindset, especially from Baja. Like those Pro 4 races are 15 minutes, and every guy, we're just like, it's wide open all the time. It's just the most insane style of racing you can ever imagine. But
yeah, Yeah, exactly. I've often described it as a sprint car race with jumps.
Yeah.
And that's, like I say, you're wide out, you're going 2-3 wide into a jump into a corner. And it's got to be a rush on a scale with, like a Pro 4 scale. It's got to be pretty insane.
Yeah. It's just like those vehicles. It's hard to even explain to people how they move and how you drive them, but you really don't steer them. You just point them, right? And it's all you're just working the throttle and moving the thing around the course. And yeah, it's just the wheel doesn't hardly turn at all. You're basically just using the gas to pull it around. And 4-wheel drive, right? You just hit the gas on the thing and just throw you back in the seat. Like, it's such a rush driving those cars for sure.
I remember when he came out to Brockville once, and I think you're just doing some testing or towards the end of the season. And I was looking at your vehicle, and it was almost like you're almost standing the way that the seat was mounted. It was just a different style than I'd seen before in other vehicles. So they're just a totally different vehicle. Going back to the Bronco, I know that you are also a fan of early Broncos like I am. And I think you've got a couple other ones too, don't you?
Yeah. I've got a 71, and that I drive, as much as I can, because it's just so much fun to drive. And a bunch of other ones that I, kind of got in the line to get restored. And then I work on early Broncos for other people as well, like guys that just hear through the grapevine that I've got some. And, we like with our racing background and suspension and all the stuff that goes on, we were able to put a lot of that, knowledge into the early Broncos and make them, if you're an early Bronco guy, those things got some pretty bad bump steer. And,
Yep. Yep.
like if you've got a truck like that, you just want to be able to drive it. So we bring them into the shop and go through suspension and steering and make them fun for these guys to drive. So we do a lot of that. Yeah, just for random people that, kind of hear through the grapevine. And yeah, we got Broncos everywhere around here. It's, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that's one thing that we found too with the racing. I was with Sportsman for All Drive-In and Bob Nesty for a number of years as an employee, and we found with his racing with the twin traction front ends that we found out where the weak points were, and you could totally take that into everyday or weekend warriors vehicles. Take that technology and because you find out what breaks, what works, and that. And as a 4x4 shop, it really helped us, and our customers being able to find out where the weak points are and making their stuff work too, right? So
Yeah.
that's one thing. If you guys check out McCrossan Motorsports on Instagram or Facebook, and they've got pictures and some videos of the shop and what's going on in the shop and that. And one of the videos has you walking in from the exterior into the shop. And dude, that shop is awesome. Basically, to let people know, it's sort of a vintage look around. It's almost like an old cabin look on the outside and some antiques and that. And then you go inside and it's all nice and clean, brightly lit, your modern shop. So it's pretty impressive. You got to check it out on their Facebook and Instagram pages for sure. So that's going back to the Bronco. I know TMR worked out with you guys quite a bit, and everybody, you should know who TMR is. I mean, they're like say Canadian company, and they deal with all kinds of parts to help people build their vehicles. Everything from mounting tabs to full blown, Dana 60 swap kits and parts or things to mount, to help keep the garage safe and clean and stuff like that. So let's talk a little bit about TMR and then maybe some of your other sponsors that you use or that you have.
Yeah, TMR, can't say enough about those guys. Like the product, the people, they go way over and above anybody's expectations. And anybody that's dealt with them would say the exact same thing. Like just the product is amazing, and you place your order and it gets shipped. Like I pick up, but man, it's just a lot of time, like the lead times for stuff now is crazy, but somehow these guys are keeping it together and keeping their customers happy. And, if you need stuff for off road, they're the guys, they're the go-to guys, 100%. And they supported us, on this whole Baja thing. Like, right from the start, I went in and talked to Tim and Mike, and they're like, yeah, we're on board. It wasn't even a question. And we're so glad to have them on board. So TMR is a big part of it. We had Polito Ford and Lindsay. Anthony Polito, he jumped on board and helped us out with his company that he deals with, did all the wrap. Wilson Water Wells is another local company in the Newmarket area. They're friends of ours that we raced snowcross with for years. They jumped on board. It just lots of people that sort of I've known over the years. When they found out we were doing Baja, they're like, we got to get involved in this. Like, how can we, what can we do to make this happen? And it was great, just like the support, because this isn't a one man deal when you're going to buy. There's so many people, back home, giving us support, and then all your crew guys. Like you need a team. You need people around you to make it happen. So lots of support.
Yeah, and speaking of the team, it's not just it's not just a weekend before the race, work on the race truck kind of idea. I mean, for some people, I've seen people still working on the race truck at the races as they pull in, kind of idea. But something like Baja, you're prepping, especially if you have to drive so far. But you're prepping, 2, 3, 4 months ahead of time.
Yeah,
and sort of taking a vehicle like you guys did a major overhaul on the Bronco.
how far are you planning on going again this year? You mentioned the brakes, and just sort of go through and just do your regular maintenance on it and then give it a shot again next year.
Yeah, we'll strip it down. So
Yeah.
we'll like pull the front rear disc right out of it, pull the tranny out of it, and go through everything. It's so much time and money, and to go down to do a race like that, you need to put in the time to make sure everything's good, and that's what makes you finish races is the prep work. Because
Yeah.
it's like you might not need to pull that front diff out, but if you don't, you're not going to find the issues. One little thing can let it down, and then you're on the side of the trail and you can't get it back going again. So, if you can find these little things, and just it's the little things that bite you.
Yeah, a little broken bolt here that might have had a crack in it, and it
Yeah,
breaks the next time out or whatever, right? So
yeah.
it's
Like
definitely
yeah, we do all new hardware when we do take it apart. So it's even the bolts get replaced. So
yeah,
it's just not worth reusing old stuff because it takes a beating.
for sure, definitely. What was your I know I'm bouncing around a little bit, but flipping back to the NORRA race, if you could take one memory out of that you could have forever, what was probably one of your favorite memories down to that race?
Yeah, that's a tough one because there's just so many, right? Like it's just, but I would have to say, the contingency in Ensenada was pretty cool. Like just you're walking around. You talked about seeing guys in magazines when you're a kid. So these guys that I saw in magazines when I was a kid, we're standing talking to them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
like it's amazing just to be able to be part of it, and everybody's so great. Like you're looking at all these old vehicles and seeing it, but so that was pretty cool. And then some of the scenery in Baja, like we came into the Bay of LA, and that's one of the remotest places in Baja. Like there's no cell service out there. It's even hard to get to in a vehicle, let alone in a
yeah.
race car. And we come over the mountains, and the sun's kind of coming down, and you're doing 100 miles an hour on a gravel road, and the ocean comes up in front of you. Like it's just
Let's stop here and camp for the night.
yeah, it's a pretty cool feeling for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. The were you guys was there any pre-running, or were you guys basically working off the GPS?
Yeah, all off GPS. Yeah, they give
Yeah,
you, our co-pilots. One was Rob Purcell and Mary
yeah,
Quinn, and then my daughter Nicole. Like they worked hard. The guys doing the navigating are on it. Like road books, and there's so many obstacles and stuff out there. So we have the Lawrences in the car, so they're looking at the maps.
yeah, yeah.
The turn by turns are all done by road books, so they got to be
So
paying attention.
that's a big thing that years ago we used to do the pre-running, and you have to have it all in your head kind of idea, right? And as things progressed, they have gone with with the GPS and a large GPS screen in front of the co-driver, and it's almost like a rally race where the co-driver's calling stuff out, basically, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah, so they actually don't allow pre-running for NORRA. You're not allowed to go down pre-run, but the navigators are. Honestly, I wouldn't want to be a navigator in a race car. Like they got a hard job, right? Like all I got to do is sit there and point and steer. But they're calling it out because you could be doing 100 miles an hour on a gravel road somewhere, and they're like, okay, there's a caution coming up, keep to the right. So you keep to the right, and then when you get around the corner, you realize why. Well, there's a crater that you could put like 6 school buses in the middle of the road, right? So
yeah.
it's Mexico. You just never know what's going to pop out and get you. Like We
Yeah, and it's a huge responsibility for them. It's not just along for the ride and look at the gauges here and there kind of idea. It's a huge responsibility.
yeah. No, they're calling
Yeah,
it out, and you're driving in the dust too, trying to pass people, and you can't see 50 feet ahead of you, and you're traveling, at some pretty crazy speeds, and they're telling you, all right, you're going to be turning left up here, or a big sweeping corner, and it's
yep,
almost driving blind. So
yeah, definitely. And the heat is a whole nother ball game too.
yeah, it wasn't too bad when we were down there. The further south we
Yeah,
got, the hotter it got. But yeah, there can be some hot days for sure.
yep, yep. Especially in those race suits, and you're sitting there, and yeah, you can definitely feel it for sure. So,
Yeah,
by the way, those TMR race suits look great. I have to say.
yeah, the suits turned out amazing. We worked with Awesome Racewear out of Niagara Falls on those, and they did an amazing job. Yeah, like we just looked at the color schemes, and we tried to again, go with the new Bronco DR scheme on
Yep.
that, and they were a hit. Everybody loved them for sure.
Yeah, they look great, definitely. So, um, once again, everybody check out McCrossan Motorsports on Facebook and Instagram, and we definitely look forward to what you got coming up in the future. Definitely want to see you guys go down to Mint, and definitely want to see you return down to NORRA. Hopefully, I can make it down to NORRA next year. It's on my hit list. So I really annoyed that I couldn't make it this year, just with the strobe display and seeing Big Ole. I mean, what 50ish or year old guy doesn't want to see Big Ole, right? We all grew up watching in the magazines, and yeah, that I really wanted to see Big Ole, but it is what it is. So it yeah, there's so many different vehicles down there in regards to history. Mark Stahl had Ivan Stewart's Ford, the black Ford for,
Yeah.
and all the Broncos and the Colt, and like I say Rod Hall's Dodge, and all the buggies too. I recognize them, but I don't know them as well as a lot of other people do. But how about that? Have you ridden, or have you raced in a buggy before? Is that something you would be interested in, or are you a heavy metal boy?
Well, I'd race anything. Yeah, no, I'm a racer, so I'd get in any kind. If somebody said to me, you know what, jump in that car and go, I'd go, right? Uh, but I haven't never raced a buggy, so it would be a lot of fun for sure, just to give it a shot one day.
Yeah, definitely. It's different. It's they handle differently, of course, and it's yeah, it takes some getting used to, but they're definitely a lot of fun as well. Could probably close up a little bit here, Steve, but one of the last questions I have for you is the 4x4 Canada podcast. Who would you like to listen to on the podcast yourself in regards to Canadians?
Yeah, man, you know what? It'd be amazing to have Milan Mosnek. The history that guy has in Ontario off road racing, and he's still giving it down in the Midwest, right? Like
Yeah,
he had a pretty tough bout with cancer that he beat, and
yeah.
you know what? He was down and out, but not for long, and he's back at it, racing in the Midwest now again. That he's been there, done that. I'd love to be able to listen to.
Definitely a guy that I would like to sit down, chat with, and definitely a guy I'd like to, sit around the campfire and share fruit beers, because I know he's got some stories.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
He's one of them. There's tons of guys too. There's so much history, and there's the Dinsmores that are they're racing my old Pro 4 truck.
yeah.
They get down to Crandon with that. They'd be great to talk to those guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I definitely want to hit up Greg and Travis for sure. That's a long time family. I mean, the two brothers were racers in the buggies in the 70s and 80s, and yeah, the stories that they have, and the stories that they have that they're still building these days, like you say with your Pro 4, definitely want to talk to them for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome, Steve. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with this, and I definitely want to see you guys down in NORRA again and down in the Mint. And I can't wait to see you down there in person next year.
Yeah, well, we're looking forward to trying to get back down there, and it'd be great if you could make it down for sure. It's a lot of fun.